For generations, Mars was the planet of imagination. Then it became the planet of disappointment. When NASA's Mariner 4 flew past in 1965, its images of a barren, cratered landscape shattered popular fantasies of canals, cities, and obvious life. Mars began to look less like a neighboring world and more like a dead one. But the deeper NASA explored, the stranger that conclusion became. Because Mars has not just been revealing old rocks and empty deserts. It has been offering evidence of ancient lakes, preserved organics, pure sulfur no one expected to find, helicopter flight in an alien sky, and a rock so unusual that NASA said it contained signs of past water, organic material, and chemical clues that could point to reactions once associated with microbial life. In other words, the more NASA finds on Mars, the harder it becomes to call the planet simple. That is what makes this story so powerful. NASA did not find one dramatic secret hidden under the Martian dust. It found a pattern of discoveries that keeps forcing scientists to ask the same question in new ways. How dead is Mars, really? The rock that made scientists stop. One of the most surprising discoveries came from NASA's Perseverance rover in Jezero Crater, where the mission has been exploring an ancient river and lake system. In July 2024, Perseverance examined a rock nicknamed Chayava Falls, and NASA said the rover found leopard spots and other features suggesting that billions of years ago, chemical reactions in this rock may have supported microbial life. NASA was careful not to claim life had been found, but it called the rock one of the mission's most intriguing discoveries. What made Chayava Falls so compelling was not one single feature, but the combination. NASA said the rock showed evidence of past water, organic material, and distinctive dark-rimmed spots associated with chemistry that, on Earth, can be linked to microbial processes. At the same time, scientists emphasize that non-biological explanations are still possible. That caution matters. Mars science advances through elimination, not hype. But the fact that NASA publicly described this rock as potentially important enough to raise biosignature questions tells you how unusual it is. This is one of the biggest reasons Mars remains so captivating. NASA is no longer searching only for giant, obvious signs of life. It is studying subtle textures, mineral patterns, chemical traces, and geological context. On Mars, the most extraordinary discoveries do not always look dramatic at first glance. Sometimes they look like a strangely spotted rock sitting in dust. NASA found a place that used to be a lake. One of Perseverance's core goals has always been to investigate Jezero Crater, because scientists believe it once held a lake fed by a river delta. In December 2023, NASA said Perseverance had completed exploration of the ancient delta and had been traversing what was once a river and lake system, collecting samples that reveal the geologic history of the region. That matters because lakes are among the most promising places to preserve evidence of ancient habitability. This is a major shift from the old image of Mars as simply dry and dead. NASA's findings in Jezero strengthen the case that Mars once had stable liquid water at the surface, in environments where sediments could accumulate, minerals could form, and potential biosignatures might be preserved. A crater lake is not proof of life, but it is exactly the kind of place astrobiologists would want to search. And that is one of the deeper truths NASA has uncovered on Mars. The planet we see today is not the planet that always existed. Ancient Mars had rivers, lakes, and environments that would have looked dramatically different from the cold desert we know now. The pure sulfur surprise. No one saw coming then. Curiosity found something that was strange in a completely different way. In 2024, NASA announced that Curiosity had cracked open a rock and revealed crystals of pure, elemental sulfur. The first time this material had ever been found in pure form on Mars. NASA said scientists were stunned because sulfur on Earth is often associated with volcanoes and hot springs, and there is no obvious evidence for those formation conditions in the part of Gale crater where the rover found it. Even months later, NASA said the team still did not have a ready explanation for how the sulfur formed there. This is the kind of discovery that reminds you how much Mars still resists easy interpretation. Pure sulfur is not just another mineral in a list. It is a clue that the planet's geochemical story is still incomplete. Something happened in Gale crater that allowed elemental sulfur to form and be preserved. Makur and scientists are still trying to work out what that process was. That is why Mars remains so scientifically powerful. It keeps producing results that are not merely exciting, but inconvenient. Results that force researchers to admit that a planet they have studied for decades still has mechanisms they do not fully understand. NASA even flew a helicopter there. One of the most extraordinary things NASA found on Mars was not hidden in a rock at all. It was hidden in the atmosphere. For years, powered flight on Mars was considered extremely difficult because the atmosphere is so thin. Then Ingenuity arrived and changed that. NASA says Ingenuity was designed as a short technology demonstration expected to perform no more than 5 flights. But it went on to complete 72 flights over nearly 3 years before its mission ended in January 2024 after rotor blade damage during its 72nd flight. That achievement matters because it changed how Mars can be explored. Ingenuity proved that aerial scouting on another planet is possible, opening the door for future missions that do not have to rely only on wheels. But it also changed the emotional tone of Mars exploration. Mars stopped being just a place where robots crawl. It became a place where machines can fly. That may sound like a technology story more than a science one, but it is deeply connected to discovery. Every improvement in how NASA moves across Mars changes what NASA can find there. Ingenuity was not just a helicopter. It was proof that Mars can be explored in dimensions we had barely touched before, where the real treasure may still be coming home. Another thing NASA found on Mars is something most people still have not fully appreciated: a carefully selected collection of rock samples designed to answer the biggest Martian questions in laboratories on Earth. NASA's Mars sample pages say, Perseverance has been collecting and caching rock cores chosen specifically because they preserve the geologic and potentially astrobiological history of Jezero crater. By April 2024, NASA's sample catalog showed dozens of collected or prepared sample tubes, with scientists treating them as one of the mission's most important legacies. This matters because the most extraordinary discovery on Mars may not happen on Mars at all. It may happen years later in a clean lab on Earth, when researchers can apply tools too large, too sensitive, or too complex to fly. NASA has made it clear that part of Perseverance's job is not simply to discover interesting rocks, but to choose the right ones for eventual return and deep analysis. So when people ask what NASA found on Mars, the most honest answer may be, we do not fully know yet. Some of the biggest discoveries are still sealed inside sample tubes, waiting for a future chapter of the mission. Mars keeps doing 2 things at once. This is what makes Mars so difficult to summarize. It keeps behaving like 2 planets at the same time. One Mars is cold, dry, irradiated, dusty, and brutally empty on the surface today. The other Mars is ancient, a world of rivers, lakes, chemical gradients, mineral transformations, and preserved clues that hint at a far more habitable past. NASA's rover findings in Jezero and Gale reflect exactly that duality. One rover is finding ancient lake evidence and potentially biosignature-relevant rocks. Another is uncovering pure sulfur in a place where it should not be. Both are telling us that modern Mars is the remnant of something much more complex. That tension is why every major discovery on Mars feels so loaded. No single finding proves life. No single rock solves the planet. But every new result makes the old dead planet label feel less complete. Mars keeps pushing back against simplicity. So what did NASA really find on Mars? NASA found evidence that Mars once hosted lakes and flowing water in places like Jezero Crater. It found rock textures and chemistry in Chayava Falls that scientists say may reflect reactions associated with ancient microbial habitability, while also acknowledging non-biological possibilities. And it found pure elemental sulfur in Gale Crater where no one expected it. It proved flight is possible in the Martian sky. And it built a growing collection of samples that may contain the next major answer about Mars's past. But on a deeper level, NASA found something even stranger. It found that Mars is still withholding its final answer. The strangest thing NASA found was uncertainty. You won't believe what NASA found on Mars. Sounds like the setup to a sensational story. But the real power of the discoveries is not that they confirm a fantasy. It is that they deepen the mystery in scientifically serious ways. NASA found a potentially biosignature-relevant rock in an ancient lake environment. It found pure sulfur where it should not have been easy to explain. Now it found a world that once had water and may have had conditions suitable for life. And after all these missions, it still has not reached a final conclusion about whether Mars was ever alive. That is what makes Mars so compelling. It is not just the red planet anymore. It is the planet that keeps almost answering the biggest question in planetary science.